So today we're going to be rebuilding, what is it called, Phil?
The left side hydrostatic transmission.
The hydrostatic transmission.
Yep.
On a John Deere zero turn here. Yeah. Floor's a little slick here. But yeah, we need 4-wheel drive on the old Crocs today.
Yeah, but Z535E, I can't remember the exact code of the trans. I think it's like a T71D something. Can't remember it off the top of my head.
But all the models of like similar to this should be the same, right?
Yes, yeah, for zero turn, not for riding mowers, but for the zero turns.
For the zero turns, yeah. Because we did look at other ones. Some of them have a central hydraulic,
like a transaxle.
Yeah, like a central hydraulic pump that goes to the motors. These have the hydraulic pumps individually for each wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess the left side one's been acting up, and she decided to go all the way. So I guess we'll show y'all what it does.
Yeah.
And why.
That way, if you're having similar problem with yours, this will.
Unless you like doing donuts.
Yeah. Unless you're cutting grass in a circle, not very well, you know.
Oh, that's incredible. All right.
You got all right stick. Do just the left. Yeah, so left side, nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Right stick there, yeah. Also, when you first started it, it was throwing it a little bit, wasn't it? Watch out, man. So when the problem first started, the left stick would it would move it a little bit.
Slightly, right.
Like barely.
Yeah, and then...
Which is probably a sign that your hydraulic pump's on its way out, at least.
Yeah,
so.
I decided to cut grass with it that way, try to limp it by, it overheated, blew the seals out, and now it don't work at all. So here we are.
So we're gonna tip this thing up and get the hydraulic transmission rig out of there, whatever it's called.
Yep.
And then we'll show you how to pull that apart and do the rebuild kit, which we got right here.
You wanna open her up real quick?
Yeah, we can do that.
So, here we got the pistons, or fingers, how people would call them. That's actually
like your pump,
Your pump, yes. New filter, new O-rings, which I don't know if we'll dabble in all the O-rings, but we got RTV, and this is they call it the center casing. So, what happens is, in these pistons, or whatever you may call them, if any water gets introduced into your fluid, these springs will rust and they'll break. And when they do, they find their way back here and they'll score up this surface or this surface, other piston mounts here. So either or, no, here, apologies.
Yeah.
Either or. And as soon as these get scored up, they're toast because all the hydraulic pressure leaks out through that. They mount just like that, so there's no seal or anything. So anything that damages this
basically does away with any type of seal you do have.
Yes.
Which we'll show you guys when we pull that one off, because we have had that one apart twice now, trying to kind of
do some redneck.
Yeah, a little redneck engineering, try to piece it together to make it work. And it did not, but that's because it has all that scoring, which we later found out. So now we got the fresh rebuild kit that we're gonna put in there and should fix all the problems, right?
We'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, we'll get this thing tipped up. Now we're gonna show you the delicate process of how we pick this thing up, right?
Delicate.
Piece of cake.
Delicate.
So once you get to this point, it's pretty much pull the tire off, and then you have one nut up here. You have a nut and bolt here that goes through that bracket. You have one down here you got to pull, You gotta pull both of these nuts and bolts. I think that's all of them, isn't it?
Yep. And then we normally take
we normally take that spring off. Makes it a little bit easier to get the belt off when you do get it loose. So we will go ahead and do all that, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and pull it out. So next step here is pulling out both of these bolts, what Phil just did, to pull that reservoir off of there. One thing I also didn't say is you have like a cotter pin clip holding this spring on and this linkage, which you do have to take off to pull it out. And then now that we have that out, we can flip this over, right, Phil?
Let's take that.
Oh yeah, we'll take the fan off, take this pulley off, and once we flip it over, we'll be splitting the case. So now that we have the fan and that pulley off, this linkage here has a roll pin going right through the middle. You just got to pop that out and you can pull this right off. So after pulling that linkage off, the next step here, pull all the bolts here to separate the case. Only thing you want to watch out for when you're doing this is there is one sneaky one down in the valley right here. So once you pull that off, that's what you're going to be looking at. The parts we were talking about with what's usually goes bad and what's going bad on this one is here. And the other one, can't really see it, it's on the bottom side under this center case here.
Yeah.
So from here, you're pretty much going to pull your bolts here that hold down your center case.
A little bit of suction. There we are. And then there'll be this little booger of a pin. Make sure you don't lose this little sucker.
Yeah, that is a tiny pin there.
Normally I take it with the roll pin, put it right on the magnet.
Yeah, there is magnets that sit here, here,
and
another one, yeah, over there.
So now our center case is ready to pop out, and we will show y'all what went wrong.
Oh boy.
Alright. So, watch out because there'll be a lot of moving parts once you take this off. Set that to the side. Remember the bearing goes on the inside. And this is all held in by a little booger clamp there, which we'll take off in a minute, but I guess we can show you the underside. So you see that? That's terrible. That's way worse than I thought it was.
Yeah, that is scored up really bad.
So, how a hydrostatic really works, extra spring for you. This here is your drive lever. So when you take the joystick of your lawnmower and you move it forward or back, one way or the other, it pushes these pistons in, which sends fluid through the center case, which sends it into this, which moves on this, turns this, and all the magic happens. Boom, power. So instead of it coming through the holes it's supposed to, when it comes out, it finds its way through here or through here. And this one looks the same exact way, which we'll show you when we get there.
You can definitely see how scored up that is. That's supposed to be just nice, flat, pretty metal.
And you see, as soon as we took that off, little booger piece of spring came out. These things, they'll get, if any type of water gets in here, they'll begin to rust, which this spring doesn't look terrible. But when we first tried to rebuild it, there was one completely broken in half. And we thought we could rig it up with just a spring we bought from Ace, but come to find out, this scoring was just too bad to even
Yeah, the spring we did pull out was in pieces. I mean, it was completely shot, which in turn sent all the little pieces of metal from the spring through everything, and what caused all that scoring.
So I'm gonna set these to the side just so we don't get confused. So this shaft was this little black lever that we took off on the one side with a roll pin. This is the other side of it. These holes, when you put it back together, will line up the holes in the center casing, and that's pretty much like your neutral for when you want to roll it. This will slide right out. Just remember the orientation. The spring goes under the clamp when you put it back in, because that will make a difference. And also, there should be no reason you have to remove this, but in the case that you do pull this out, which it's always good, I guess, to check everything, pull this out, and then inside of here, little bearings. Want to make sure there's nothing missing in there, everything's still intact, which it is. And put that back in there. And make sure your guides are lined up down there. But normally there's no issues that happen there. But all right, and I guess we'll get this clamp off of here and we'll assess this piston as well.
All right, so we just pulled off this little cotter pin that goes,
Cotter pin?
the snap ring, my bad, that goes on the shaft over here. That's what locks all of that together. So we can go ahead and pull that apart now.
Same deal.
Yeah.
See that, and then the scoring in between each of these little journals here. So when we pull this off, you will see one of these, it's not like the others. That booger there. So we tried to attempt to fix it with our own spring, but not saying the spring might have worked, but this was our issue in rebuilding. Hoping it would have worked, but it did not. And this spring, the original one that was in here, was snapped completely in half, wedged in here, and it did a number to the internals. So, but this, if your mower sits outside for a while, or you haven't changed the fluid in a while, even just the slightest bit of water will cause these springs to rust and get weak, and when they break, well, it's game over, because they'll find a way into something that'll hurt. So
yeah, which we were completely unaware that, I mean, the scoring is pretty bad, but they're saying even if you have, from the research Phil did, the scoring that we have on there is like terrible.
Yeah.
Even a lot less than what we have on here will cause similar problems.
yeah, and so there's no orientation, but also there's more ball bearings in here, so just make sure nothing's broken, nothing's missing, this, that, and the third, and it just sets in there. Make sure to wipe it off, not get junk on it like we did. And well, I guess now it's getting the new parts. Matter of fact, can you bring it over here? Look what's in there. I don't know if you can see it well on the camera, but there's a piece of spring in there.
There's a piece of spring down in there.
And this is just full of journals to get from one of the piston assemblies, fingers, whatever you want to call these, to the other. So that gets in here, boom, game over. So I guess we'll get the new parts.
Yeah, now it's gonna be putting stuff back together.
Okay.
All right, so this is our new center case here. The one thing we did notice, in the old ones, you see these two holes here. They have two roll pins in them that did not come in the new one, so we just used a pair of channel locks, pulled them out, and then put them in here.
And when you are rebuilding, which if you noticed or not, these are two totally different sizes.
Yeah.
One's bigger than the other one. Your smaller one is what is vertical into this ring here. Your bigger one mounts.
Actually, are the spline shafts? Okay, yeah, the spline shafts are different sizes.
Okay, so
hard
to mess up.
Yeah, hard to mess up, but they are. This is a small one. That's a big one.
That's incredible. Oh man, she's a little loosey goosey. Just looping her up.
Yeah, and as you can see, it's a good idea to have a clean workspace when you're doing this on the garage floor, you know.
So now we'll be putting this smaller assembly back in. It's kind of a pain in the butt because These fingers obviously want to fall out while I was trying to demonstrate. They really did.
Also, once you get that back on there, you just got to put that snap ring back on the shaft there.
So, the way I figured out the best way to do this to kind of make life a little easy so they don't fall out is I take my fingers, I cover every piston, and I leave a hole to slide the spline in, and you kind of just push against your fingers all the way in. And you want to make sure, because they cannot fall completely out and they'll get wedged and you won't have that spring action.
You won't have that movement there.
I can probably demonstrate with another one, but that was painful. Everything's so slippery. So something like that.
Yeah,
like
they'll get wedged, so they won't go in.
They won't come all the way out.
They won't compress.
And that'll cause issues as well. So you just want to make sure
you get that little up and down movement there. You can feel it springing.
Down movement.
You can feel it springing back and forth there.
Excuse me. All right, and so this tends to be a little bit of pain in the butt. You want to make sure.
Yeah, this has two ends on it.
One has a divot and one is perfectly straight. When we pulled it apart, I made the bad decision, to call for it to go in like this, and reverse was forward.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure your divot
is down.
Divot down.
Divot down.
And this can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. It's definitely nice to have two hands. I'm gonna try and do it by myself here so we can get a good video of it. But you gotta squeeze that in. Well, we're gonna pull that back out because can't forget.
Oh yeah, make sure you gotta put that shaft back in first.
Spring under the clamp, slides in there. And now it makes it a little more of a pain in the butt because you gotta line it up with that holes.
Also, when you're going to put this in, what we just did, we had it all the way down. Forgot to put this this gear on this spline shaft on this side. The bearing goes on before it. So after you get that all pressed back down in there, it's just going to be running these bolts back down, tightening everything up. And then you have the one gear that connects between these two to slot back in.
Yep.
And then once you get to this point, you have it all bolted back down. You can't forget to put that little pin back in there. And then that tiny gear goes on there first. Then the outer. And you have to find it's kind of iffy. I think you actually nailed it. But there's a correct orientation where you got to get them where the slots on this piece line up with the roll pins that we were talking about earlier as well.
Oh,
there it is.
There it is.
So that can be a little iffy, but if you keep messing with it, you'll find the spot where it drops on. It can only fit the one way. So when you set that gear back in, that shaft has to have a certain orientation to it, doesn't it, Phil?
Yeah, if I can get it in here. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. So the flat piece of this shaft will face up. If you look in the top case over here,
yeah, there's a little
where it lands, it has something to fill that spot there. So and now filter on, spring in there, and it's just cleaning the gasket material off, getting the new stuff on there,
and then sealing her up, right?
Sealing her up.
And also this piece here, this can be a little bit of a pain putting it back together. As you see, it's oblonged a little bit, and that goes with the flat side facing inward, like so, into that little groove. And then magnet here, here, and here. And then as far as getting rid of the old gasket material, putting the new on and getting it sealed up, we should be getting ready to put this thing back together. Alright, so Phil is putting the gasket material on there now. we opted to use some gasket maker that we already had, just because we know it's tried and true and works really good. This will be the last step before putting the case back together and getting it ready to go back in the mower. Pretty much the reason we made this video though is because in the process of Phil doing research, he did not find any videos online about rebuilding these at all. So figured it could be kind of helpful.
All right, I think this case is ready to set in place. We got our magnets in there, we got all that. So go ahead and flip this case over. And we'll set her on there. Hopefully this goes well as I put my knee in front. Find the sweet spot here. There it is.
So we'll finish getting all these bolts in, and then the next step is going to be putting that pulley and fan back on, and that little actuator lever, and putting that roll pin back in, and then this unit will be ready to go back in the mower. All right, everything's back together. We got the reservoir back on, the pulley and the fan there. Now it's just going to be putting it back in the mower, setting it down, filling it up with fluid, and seeing what we're working with. All right, so everything is all back together. Filled her up with fluid. Now we're gonna start it up, let it build some pressure, and then see what we're working with. Smoking a little bit. They usually do when you tip them back. They get a little oil somewhere.
Alright. Moment of truth.
Yeah. See what she does. Oh wow. Oh boy. There she is. Go full left.
Huh?
Go full left, see if you spin her around. Yeah, there you go. Good to go.
Burning through that hole.
Yeah, we did. She got some oil where she wasn't supposed to. That'll clear up. We had to put some more in her. She'll be good to go. There it is.
There it is.
Put it on. Well, runs good, cuts good. I think it's a successful rebuild.
Agreed.
Well, I think that is gonna wrap it up for this project. So if you guys found it helpful, you know, like I said, we didn't see any videos online on how to do it. And evidently we did something right, because now it works, you know, so.
Right, agreed.
Hopefully this will help out some of you guys. And I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. So if you guys enjoyed it, give us a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content.